take my rights away, the faster I will run. Welcome to the King Breaking Silence webinar. We're coming to you today from Philadelphia. Yay! Where a multi-generational weekend-long conversation is taking place on the theme, We See You and We Are Here. I am the Reverend Dr. Donna Jones. I'm a member of the National Council of Elders, and I am blessed to be working here in Philadelphia with activists and faith leaders of all generations who are committed to the work of truth-telling, restorative justice, and structural change. I am joined as a webinar co-host today by my beloved assistant pastor here at Brooklyn Beloved Community Baptist Church, Kirsten Britton. And I want to welcome all of our friends who are present here. We have members of the Council of Elders here. We have young people here. We have just plain old average everyday Philadelphians here. And we're just really glad to see you all.
We also want to welcome our friends and allies who gathered for watch parties in the great city of Philadelphia. So welcome and shout out to all of you who are joining us in different spaces. And just a big shout out to all who are joining us, mind, body, and spirit, not just in Philadelphia, but all around the world. So as my lovely co-host said, my name is Reverend Kirsten Britton. I am the assistant pastor here at our host church, Cookman Beloved Community Baptist Church. I am excited to be here and able to contribute to the King Breaking the Silence project produced by the National Council of Elders. Every year, this project lifts up continuing relevance of Dr. King's strong stand against violence of all kinds, military violence, racist violence, and the everyday economic violence that racial capitalism inflicts on low-income communities and communities of color here and at home. April 4th remains an important date in our heart and minds because this date, in 1967, Dr. King spoke out forcefully on these themes. Exactly 1 year later, on April 4th, 1968, King was murdered in Memphis for telling the truth that no one wanted to hear. King and Breaking Silence maintains a website that is filled with rich resources related to all of today's themes, including recordings of other recent programs addressing settler colonialism and the current genocide in Gaza. Be sure to visit kingandbreakingsilence.org.
Our program today begins with a multi-generational discussion recorded just a few days ago on some of the uncomfortable truths that Dr. King was exposing 57 years ago. And they're still present today. That's led by Michaela Warwick. Our panelists will help us all connect the dots between militarism and racist brutality in the international arena and the brutality that we see and experience in militarized policing and a racist criminal justice system here in the United States. Let's join our friends for that discussion now. And I remind everyone watching that you can use the chat feature to offer comments and post questions. We have folks standing by to field the chat.
Greetings, everyone who has tuned in to the King Breaking the Silence webinar. We are joined by 4 incredible panelists. We have Aaron Gail Wilson, we have Caleb Kabede-Tale, we have Yancy Harrell, and we have Bill Wiley-Kellerman, who have been convened today to share how their respective work as peacemakers and organizers is interconnected and situated within a global project. We've convened today to explore how our world is detrimentally shaped by a culture of violence that is rooted in racism, materialism, and militarism. We convened today because we know the normalization of this violence must stop. King urged us then, and it still rings true today, that we have a choice to move toward nonviolent coexistence or violent co-annihilation. Day in and day out, we lament how resources and energies have gone towards sustaining the latter for far too long. So it's time to shift towards liberation if we shall ever know peace. So I am going to start by introducing all of the panelists that we have here today. And I will start with Bill Wiley-Kellerman. Bill Wiley-Kellerman is a nonviolent community activist, author, teacher, and retired United Methodist pastor who's rooted in Detroit, Michigan. Over the last 5 decades, his work has grown from direct action in anti-war and anti-nuclear campaigns toward organizing more broadly with the Michigan Poor People's Campaign and the water struggles there to challenge systemic racism, poverty, the war economy, as well as ecological devastation and morality that we're facing in our nation. So next, I will go to Yancey Harrell. Yancey is an anti-violence grassroots organizer here in Philadelphia, and alongside his wife, Dr. Movita Johnson Harrell, they formed the Charles Foundation, which centers on improving the lives of young people, bringing opportunities to Philly neighborhoods, and working to end gun violence in honor of their sons, Dante and Charles, whose lives were tragically cut short due to gun violence. Now, I'm going to introduce Aaron Gail Wilson. Aaron is the co-executive director of Urban Advocates, a Philly-based nonprofit founded by youth to advocate for youth to have equitable and quality education here. She's a freshman at Cheney, and she's studying criminal justice. And before all of these impressive roles she has now, she founded Mentally Eat, which stands for Evolve, Achieve, and Transform, with Aaron, to spread awareness about mental health in our Black and African American communities. And last but certainly not least, we have Caleb Kabede-Tale, and he's a longtime organizer, despite being quite young, from the Cambridge-Boston metropolitan area, who moved to Philly to study computer science and Black studies at Swarthmore. His organizing areas of interest include advocating for police-free Black neighborhoods and technology and political education for Black communities. He's heavily involved with SJP and the Black Student Union on his campus. So I want to say welcome, everyone, and thank you all so much for being here on this panel. All right. So to honor the framework of our discussion, which is an annual reminder of what King stated in Beyond Vietnam, A Time to Break the Silence, I'll be asking my questions with direct quotes that come from that speech. So this first question is going to go towards Yancey and Aaron. So in thinking about a culture of violence, Dr. King said the following: As I have walked among the desperate, rejected, and angry young men of the ghettos of the North, I have told them that cocktails and rifles would not solve their problems. I have tried to offer them my deepest compassion while maintaining my conviction that social change comes most meaningfully through nonviolent action. But they ask, and rightfully so, what about Vietnam? They ask if our own nation wasn't using massive doses of violence to solve its problems, to bring about the changes it wanted. In today's context, I want to ask, for those of us engaged in that community-centric work to reduce gun violence or end gun violence, how do you try to shift this culture from the ground up through grassroots community engagement? So maybe I'll popcorn first to Yancey, if that's all right.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Yancey Harrell. I'm the founder and co-founder of the Charles Foundation. So Charles was murdered. People started calling me and my wife when somebody got shot. They said, you need to call Yancey Movita. We were showing up at hospitals. You know, we was taking food to families and stuff like that. I'm also a permanent pantry here in Philadelphia. I'm also a civic association here in Philadelphia. And we also have a March for Our Lives chapter. So we also teaching kids how to become community activists. But one thing that I realized, the area that we are in Philadelphia is a food desert. Last year, SEPTA donated a city bus to us. So we have a city bus. And what we did, we transferred that bus into a mobile trauma center. So when the weather changed and it gets warm, we pull up the parks and we do therapy with children and families. The Charles Foundation also does a grief support. You know what I'm saying? Because when my son was first murdered, we went to a program, and the program that we went to kept us stuck. So we created our own program out of that. That's one of the reasons by the Charles Foundation came about. So one of the things that we did in 2013, there was a criminologist named David Kennedy out of John Jay College in New York. And he came up with a pilot. And the pilot was named Focus Deterrence. And what it did, we started in South Philadelphia. We picked a 40-block radius, and we identified 40 people that were liable to be killed or kill somebody. We took them into a judge's chambers with the DEA, the ATF, the top police brass, and social services. And the year that we did that, there was a 40% reduction in homicide. So there's some things that work, you know what I'm saying, that we can divert these kids from the violence, you know what I'm saying? But you have to give them opportunities, you know what I'm saying? You have to give them opportunities, you know, jobs, food, education. You know, how are you going to close schools and swimming pools when you got a city full of kids with nothing to do? When I was growing up as a kid, we had the PAL, you know, you took up music in school. They don't have any of those things no more. When I was in second grade, I was on the chess team. No, they don't have those outlets anymore. So these kids don't have anything to do.
I appreciate you so much. And I'm glad you're here and you ended up hopping on Zoom. You're doing great. But I want to tag in because that last point that you made actually is a beautiful segue to Erin and the work that she's doing to advocate for returning resources back to the youth that are in our communities who have been negatively impacted by that neglect and that reduction in funding towards social supports. So Erin, the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. Once again, I'm Erin Gill-Wilson. I'm a freshman here at the nation's very first HBCU, Cheney University, majoring in criminal justice to make a change legally within the court system and criminal justice system. But prior to being able to do that, I need to start my community first. Growing up in Philadelphia, a lot of my family members and even one of my teachers, people that I've grown up around, got incarcerated. And when I was younger, I never really understood it until I got older and realized that we're nothing but a product of our environment. If we grow up around financial struggles or with deems to be struggles, or if we grow up around a lack of resources, we're not getting the education that we need. We feel like, or we aren't being provided those career and job opportunities in the same way that our white counterparts are being provided. We feel like we have to resort into other options, especially options that are implemented in the communities that we reside in. So therefore, when people are being incarcerated just for trying to make a means of living or just trying to get their child something to eat or just provide some clothing on their back, they're put through that whole system. And then after leaving that system, it's like they have to navigate the world again. They have to remember how to live again. You aren't really provided with any job opportunities. And I also realized that mental health is a huge struggle within our society. Aside from mental health, social health as well. A lot of people believe that to seek mental health support or to reach out to someone when in mental struggles is something that's lame or something to do. But after experiencing my friend's grieving process to losing her mom to suicide, I realized that this was something much bigger than ourselves, especially at the ripe age of 13 years old. So I wanted to make mental health a thing where as though it's prioritized. You have these resources. Here are the resources that are available to you. You can use them. So I started my nonprofit organization as just a small mentorship program. It just started as a peer mentorship program. I got a little Zoom. My cousin bought me a Zoom account. And so I just had my friends come in. My friends bought their friends in a way that promotion and communication works. You tell a friend, they tell a friend, and those people join. And then we talked about the type of topics that were passionate to them.
Thank you so much, Erin. I feel like y'all have demonstrated the beauty of people power. And y'all both touched on something that connects me to the next question, which starts with this quote. A nation that continues year after year to spend more money on military defense than on programs of social uplift is approaching spiritual death. Both of you touched on how our communities have been divested from and how in order to pour back into our communities, you all have had to get creative with these resources as opposed to them being available to us in abundance. So I'm going to ask this question to Bill. How does our nation's continued investment in violence impact us all? What could exist if we invested in the soul of our nation instead?
Thanks, Michaela, and thanks to Yancy and Aaron. I look forward to hearing from Caleb as well. Yeah, the notion that the U.S. budget signals that we're approaching spiritual death suggests that a budget is actually a spiritual document as well. It names the priorities. It names or dehumanizes people, devalues people in need, and minimizes their worth at a national scale. I think it's important. This is not the only place Dr. King in the speech speaks of the nation as having a spiritual dimension. He also talks about the motto, actually, of SCLC being to save the soul of the nation, as you were suggesting there. How we need to tend our own souls in the face of these sort of budgetary assaults, I'll call them, on our communities. Part of tending the soul of the nation involves tending our own souls. We're talking about a military budget of, in the present year, I think it's $886 billion. When the Poor People's Campaign calculates militarization as a third of discretionary spending, they include law enforcement, mass incorporation, deportations, and detention as part of militarization. And that figure is well over $1 trillion. When you think what that could be doing in our neighborhoods for mental health, what it could be doing to give young people alternatives to conflict and gun violence, what it could be doing and to fund housing and all of that.
I appreciate that so much. Thank you for those words, as well as those numbers that really put what we're dealing with in perspective to this conversation. So, Caleb, I'm going to come over to you now. And I do believe this question is in a similar vein to where Bill started to take us. But back to referencing the speech, almost 6 decades ago, King linked the U.S. colonial warfare that's taking place overseas to the racist treatment of people of color right here in the United States. Undeniably, we know that police forces across the United States have been they've employed the Israeli Defense Force to train officers and share tools of surveillance to control low-income Black communities, Muslim, Middle Eastern, and North African communities, as well as Latinx communities. So some people may have a tendency to see what's happening globally as far away or disconnected to what's happening right here in our own neighborhoods. And I want to ask, how do you make the link for those who are just coming to these connections, or even in a space of denial about our shared responsibility to be a part of the solution?
I think that's a really good question. And I would say that this country has a really, really huge debt to pay. And I don't mean in reference to the World Bank or the IMF, but to all the Black people and all the people of color that it has effectively marginalized domestically and internationally, has capitalized off of us, and then has then criminalized us. And what we see is that through U.S. foreign policy, it intentionally creates instability all across the world, all across the globe, forces people to seek refuge in other countries that are not their own, and then criminalizes them for seeking that refuge. Just as our communities are strictly segregated, strictly surveilled, and strictly policed, Palestinians in Palestine are constantly under 24/7 surveillance from the Israeli occupation forces. They live in a constant state of fear of being abducted into an Israeli prison for no reason, with no trial, in a constant state of subjugation to strip searches, home raids, even the occupation of their own homes for days. And the U.S. has decided amidst this genocide that the best way to aid Palestinians in Gaza is by dropping food aid on them from the sky in the morning, then dropping bombs on them in the afternoon and the evening. And what Palestine reminds me of a lot is, the constant surveillance Black neighborhoods are subjected to. It reminds me a lot of the constant police cruiser that strolls through every 30 minutes, every hour to patrol our neighborhoods. And ever since we were kids, we knew that we were under the watchful eye of the police. And we knew that there was always the police cruiser in the parking lot or right next to the basketball court or right next to the park that we're always playing at. And we knew that any action that we do can be deemed as criminalized, and that the police have the autonomy and every right to come and do as they please. I just want to connect it back to how Palestine really reminds me of the redlining that happens in our communities, the intentional withholding of resources to the Black communities that you guys have already pointed out, and the fact that our neighborhoods are put in food deserts intentionally. The fact that Flint, Michigan still does not have access to clean water to this day for very intentional reasons. That our schools are underfunded and deteriorating for very intentional purposes. And this money, and I really truly believe that organizing and activism is a necessity for all of us, Black people and people of color, because if we don't do the work, then no one will do it. And we owe it to those who came before us to continue their legacy. And I want to end off by a quote from Malcolm X, who said that we are not outnumbered, but we are out-organized. And that perfectly encapsulates the current state of the Black community here, the Black diaspora, and people of color in general. And this is why organizing and activism, I believe, is a necessity, and why we're all of our struggles are interconnected.
Another thing that I heard, and as you were speaking, is we are facing a genocide, multiple genocides across this globe that our hands are directly tied into. There is no greater urgency than stating that at this time. So I appreciate you for bringing that language into this call and for resituating that. So I'm going to open up with actually another quote that connects to that in this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is a such thing as being too late. And that procrastination is still the thief of time. So I guess my question is, for those of us that are organizers, specifically those of us who do nonprofit work or do it through university settings, these systems have been cultivated with so much red tape, so much blockage, so much let's pause and think, let's do all of this, which ultimately benefits the existing social order. So I just want to ask the question, how do we resist that tendency to not act swiftly and with urgency?
Everything that he talked about is going on in Kensington right now. They're trying to clean up Kensington, and instead of putting those people in treatment, they're locking them up. Another thing that Martin said was, he said that our lives are meaningless until we stand up and talk about the things that matter. And people talked about mental illness, and mental illness is a big part of violence, especially when it comes to incarceration, because 9 times out of 10, a person that's misdiagnosed or not diagnosed at all. And as a family business, that's something that we do. We take care of people with chronic mental illness, and intellectual disabilities.
So we're coming up on our time. A lot of gems have been dropped. A lot of calls to action have been made, and I appreciate all of y'all so much. So I'm just going to get into the last question, and we can just kind of snake around. King told us, right? Now let us begin. That was 6 decades ago. Now let us rededicate ourselves to the long and bitter but beautiful struggle for a new world. So I just want to give everybody some space to say a couple of words, or maybe a lot of words, depending on what's on your heart, about what's the world you hope to build. And how can we make sure this world is shared with our neighbors and something that can be inherited by those that come after us.
I'm speaking first. I have a few things, you guys. So first, I just want to start with love, y'all. I believe that in my community, or I feel in my community, there isn't a lot of love anymore or family feeling. When I was growing up, my grandpa block, I grew up in my grandpa's neighborhood area. It's the Southwest area in Philadelphia. And everybody just knew everybody. Like, if you were getting into something and you were playing down the street, down the block, and you knew you wasn't supposed to be doing something, you was doing it, you ain't have to worry about your mom getting on you because she was at work. You had 1,000 other moms on the block. Everybody wanted to support you and had your best interests at heart. It was a family thing. Like, everybody knew everybody. The older people, it was a lot of respect for them. It doesn't feel that way anymore. I remember even they used to bring lunches to the block and all of that, like the little lunches, just in case some people didn't have lunch over the summer. It was a family feeling.
Yeah. But listen, God willing, if I wake up tomorrow morning, I'll be 64 years old. You know, I want to say to the sister and the brother and everybody that's on this Zoom, don't stop. Don't stop. I mean, there has been times where I wanted to give up because it seemed like I wasn't making headway, but I can't stop. You know what I'm saying? I got to keep forging forward because, like you said, if we don't do it, who's going to do it? And I want to say to just keep doing what you're doing. We need people like you. You know what I'm saying? We need somebody to be out front. The only difference now than decades ago when Malcolm marched, back then there were people willing to die for what they believe in. We had gotten soft.
No, I feel everything y'all been saying. It's been saying with me really well. And I want to add on that I really imagine a world where we're moving away from these kind of Western and European values of individualism, of gatekeeping, of competition, and where we're in a world of where we turn towards our communities with care, and we return towards each other with care and generosity and understanding, and where we're able to build each other up and where we have those resources. And also, I also imagine a world where we're not weighed down by the impossible task of making enough money to provide for our families, to the point where our whole lives are consisted of going to work and then going to sleep and repeating.
I was appreciating the way Aaron began, just what we need is love. And I'm hearing that in Yancy and Caleb as well, that's really what's underneath things, what Dr. King in various places called the beloved community. And I think in terms of the theme of the gathering here in Philadelphia of I see you, we are here, thinking of that community, including the ancestors, and that community, including those who are to come, and Earth itself and our creatures. That's the beloved community that I hear in your voices and that I yearn for in my own.
That was a powerful deep dive conversation. And we're definitely grateful to our panelists and our hosts. But in light of the deepness, I don't want to just pass that by, right? So I'm going to take a moment to just pause in reflection of the conversation that we were privileged to just hear. So in this conversation, we were reminded that our vocation as activists and revolutionaries are not just something that we can ever take lightly. The burden that we carry is a heavy one. The burden to sustain ourselves on the freedom road, as Yancey said, just keep going. We need beauty, joy, and it was mentioned by all of the panelists, love. Most of all, we need each other. So as Bill shared, our beloved community. So before we go to our dear friend, Sage and Elder Ghani, who has words for us that speak to that deep need, just want to remind you that to join our newsletter so you can get all of the stuff that we have going on, but not just that, this was an edited version of this conversation. So to see the full length of it, we ask that you go on to breakingsilence.org, and you'll be able to see the full version of this conversation. And with that, our Elder Ghani has words for us.
So I ran across these words when I was at another prison in Western Pennsylvania. The words were really profound at that time, but the profundity of it wouldn't really dawn on me until I was transferred to another prison, SCI Greater Ford, the prison that I walked out of to come home 6 years ago. And in this prison, two creatures lived inside the prison, human beings and Canadian geese. And oftentimes it was a contentious relationship between the two. But then there was also some harmony too, as we fed the geese and, try to develop a relationship with them. But then things would go haywire when the mothers laid their eggs. The fathers would they treated us all the human beings as insufferable. They would chase us and try to get us, even as we were just walking around the prison track. And it dawned on me that I had these profound words in my box that I had brought from the other prison. And these words were called Lessons from the Geese. So I reached in the box and I pulled them out. And it went thusly. Fact 1. As each goose flaps its wings, it creates an uplift for the birds that follow. By flying in the V formation, the whole flock adds 71% greater flying range than if each bird flew alone. The lesson: people who share a common sense of direction and sense of community can get where they're going quicker and easier because they're traveling on the thrust of one another. Fact 2. When a goose falls out of formation, it suddenly feels the drag and resistance of flying alone. It quickly moves back into the formation to take advantage of the lifting power of the bird immediately in front of it. The lesson: if we have as much sense as a goose, we'll stay in formation with those heading where we want to go. We're willing to accept their help and offer our help to others. Fact 3. When the lead goose tires, it quickly rotates to the back of the formation and another goose flies to the point position. The lesson: it pays to take turns doing the hard tasks and sharing leadership. As with geese, people are interdependent on each other's skills, capabilities, and unique arrangements of gifts, talents, and resources. Fact 4. The geese flying in formation honk. We hear them honk, honk, honk to encourage those up front to keep up their speed. The lesson: we need to make sure our honking is encouraging. In groups where there is encouragement, productivity is much greater. The power of encouragement, that is, to stand by one's own heart and core value and encourage the heart and core values of others, is the quality of honking we seek. And fact 5. When a goose gets sick, wounded, or shot down, 2 geese drop out of formation and follow it down to help and protect it. I don't know how many of y'all know that, but I didn't know that. They stay with it until it dies or is able to fly again. Then they launch out with another formation or catch up to the larger flock. The lesson: if we have as much sense as geese, we'll stand by each other in difficult times as well as when we are strong, right? And so even though, you know, I was with so many people behind a 40-foot high concrete walls and we couldn't see trees, we were virtually cut off from nature. Nature, God, the source of all life, however we choose to understand it, did not leave us without a beautiful example in the form of these magnificent creatures on what it takes to keep a team together, to run an organization, to keep a family strong, to keep a community together, to keep generations together, right? Or to run an effective campaign, whatever, right? In the form of these geese. And so, you know, right now we're staring in the face of possibly the sixth mass extinction, which is largely brought about by human intelligence. And so it might behoove us to defer to different kinds of intelligence. The intelligence that we see around us in nature, the intelligence of trees, the intelligence of ants, of birds, of bees, the intelligence of geese, you know, because in those examples, we can find the answers on how to save ourselves from ourselves, right? Be blessed. Salutes everybody. Love. And whenever you see these geese from now on, respect them, okay? Respect them because they have a lot to offer us. All right, peace.
Thank you. Thank you. I know that we were all inspired and encouraged to continue on and to continue on as a team, and a team that is worldwide, global, international, and I believe cosmic, because there are beings we know not of. In the earlier discussion, we learned about the interconnected dangers we face in the face of mounting systemic violence here at home and around the globe. Now we focus on how we, collectively and across generations, can build community, sustain hope and love, and support each other in the nonviolent path and in the spirit of Dr. King. Our themes are resistance, vocation, inspiration, and forging effective strategies that both build power and help nurture the creation of a new culture for the sake of the human future. I am pleased to introduce our facilitator for this segment, coming to you live from Philadelphia, Reverend Peter Lehrman, who worked as a community organizer and labor activist before training for ministry in the middle of his life. During his active ministry career of 20 plus years, he reminded people that the struggle for life and peace is all really one struggle, and that his own revolutionary commitments were unchanged and undiminished. Peter?
Thank you, Reverend Donna. And thank you all in this place of light and love and real active hope. We are surrounded in the shadow of the culture of violence at all times, culture birthed by racial capitalism. It can corrode our souls, it can corrode our lives, it can colonize our brains. And yet we lean into hope and we resist and we keep on keeping on in the spirit of Dr. King. I'm so pleased to be joined by people who are living it, leaning into it, lighting the path for all of us. And I'm going to introduce them and pose some questions to them. And we'll take it from there. And people are welcome to contribute questions. This is live from Philadelphia in every sense of the word. Immediately to my left, I have the pleasure of introducing Mata Yvonne Platz. She is a bona fide and sanctified urban peace warrior and Norristown native of Montgomery County, PA. She's a lifetime member of Nueva Vida Norristown New Life Mennonite Church, where she serves as Minister of Youth and Community Outreach. Yvonne seeks to create awareness and educate others on peace circles and community conferences. A co-creator of the Norristown Restorative Cities Initiative, Yvonne seeks to dismantle institutional racism while promoting peace in our homes, our streets, and in our schools. And to Yvonne's left, and coming to us from the West Coast, Tlatnoli Quetzalcoatl Xochipatli Fredo is an artist, teacher, and child of the sun. Fredo organizes with peacefully active, resilient, transformative youth, acronym PART-T, a network of academic, community, and street youth in solidarity for liberation and a new course for humanity. And to Fredo's left, we have Autumn Dawn Gomez. She is Comanche and Taos Pueblo, living in Pueblo country, northern New Mexico. Autumn is an earth worker, birth worker, and artist, working with Tewa Women United and Three Sisters Collective. Autumn works closely with the Satyain Circle of grandmothers and believes in intergenerational solutions to help us build the world we want to see. And now we're going to enter the questions, and each person in our little circle here can respond to each question, but they will begin with a sort of designated question. And I begin with Fredo. Fredo, could you talk about what you think and feel when you hear the words active nonviolent resistance? Say something about how those words make you feel, and definitely say how you see your own work and passion reflecting active nonviolence. Take it away, my friend.
First, I would like to just thank God, Namarka, for everyone, and just acknowledge everyone's beautiful spirit. I think God is here. And when I think about breaking the cycle of violence and just actively engaging in nonviolence living is just this morning, as I was taking a lift to LAX. Of course, as always in LA, we're always running right on time. And the Lyft driver saw me take my dog from the front side of my house to the back. And, you know, she had 5 minutes to wait for me. And when I got in the lift, she told me, I thought your dog was being stolen. I was about to come up and square up. Mind you, I'm from South Central LA. Right? She thought, she's waiting for someone. It's what, 4 a.m. And then I get in the car and she tells me why she did that. Down the street, she was like, well, you're my neighbor and I wanted to look out for you. She lives on 49th and Compton. I live on 56th and Compton. She was like, well, in my neighborhood, we have a WhatsApp where we all, she was like, I'm a Lyft driver. There's someone that gets off at work at 3. I start driving at 2. So when we see something going on in our community that's out of the norm, we talk to each other. And she was like, I learned this from my small village in Mexico, where we are looking out for each other and holding each other and making sure we're good. And as we were talking, she asked me, where are you going? Well, I'm not sure where I'm going. I'm just going. And we were talking about Lyft and how Lyft drivers don't get paid as much as they used to because Lyft drivers spoke up about the theft of labor, spirit, land that these corporations are taking. So the workers stood up. And what did Lyft do? Retaliated by taking away bonuses, taking away anything that could have encouraged anyone to drive. And I was like, well, you know what? This is what my grandmother taught me. When she took her own house from the private settlers who were occupying our lands where we're from, Guerrero, And I was like, well, you know what? Give me your number, because she asked me, how much did Lyft charge you for this ride? I was like, 65. So, well, I'm only getting 30. I was like, well, you know what? I need to be picked up from the airport when I come back. Can I get your number? You're my neighbor. And to break the cycle of violence, we have to break the cycle of profits. So I got her number, and instead of giving this corporation the extra $35 I'm giving her, I'm going to give it to my neighbor whose kid is in college studying to be a school counselor, right? So I thought about that interaction fresh in my heart. And I knew that was God, because God led me here. So that's what I'm feeling right now, on how we can actively break the cycle of violence, and even with our interactions, right? Because sometimes it's a setup. We are violent even if we don't want to. The language we're speaking is a violent language, which is why different communities have developed their own vernacular. Spanglish, our own indigenous traditions like chocolate, avocado, those are all now with words that come from our tradition. But we've kept them because who doesn't love chocolate? Who doesn't love avocado? So that's what's in my heart right now about how I'm actively, and how I see myself in the party, and the network of street youth who are always looking out for each other, especially those who have left us. In the neighborhood I grew up, we say the real ones never die. And I strongly believe that the homies are here. So thank you for that question.
Thank you, Fredo. Mati and Autumn, do you want to come in on nonviolence and how you process it in your heart and in your work, active nonviolence?
Thank you. Hioho, Anchufaku, Emma, Hamaroeka, and Nanheta Yubani. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to make sure to greet you in my languages. So what I thought about with the question was, as a co-founder of Three Sisters Collective in Ogopoge, Santa Fe, New Mexico, we advocate to take down racist monuments of Spanish colonial figures. And through that peaceful advocacy, people have been literally shot because at the idea of taking down this colonial figure. And for us as Three Sisters Collective, instead of being more expansive, more loud, more fighty, we decided that we're going to work deeper. We're going to work on our spiritual selves. We're going to work literally deep into the earth. We're practicing our traditional farming ways. We're practicing community-based public art so that we can tell our own stories the way that we believe that they deserve to be told. And our ancestral values of creating community and bringing it all back to our earth-based lifestyle. So through that violence, we have created, we're growing things, literally. It's almost planting season. And that's how we reacted to those instances.
Touching the earth and growing things, what could be more spiritually enriching and more peaceful?
Thank you.
Peaceful. Marty, on this question, active nonviolence, you are a bona fide, remember?
And actually, it brings, at this point in my life, becoming this elder that I have learned to embrace through this conversation, here I am, a really sweet release, a sweet peace. Because I was an active warrior who fought. I mean, literally fought, fussed, was ready to fight with everyone in the system. Because I just couldn't understand how the unjust just ran amok within the systems that were supposed to protect our young people, educate our young people, even our health system. So I was angry, calling people out, till I finally realized that, yo, this is hurting me. It took getting together with another group, and our tag is, our breath is our protest. So that meant learning to take care of me, to understand and to grow compassion. How I'm gonna be mad at those that don't know no better. So I was like, let me stop fighting and learn to educate, to be able to teach. So I've been really active, and actually it was the help of the guy in front of from the children and youth who I was criticizing our youth aid panel procedures. Because so what do we need? 10 more youth? I said, that'll be a start. Then we need to change the process. So what I've been doing has been creating a movement in Norristown, in our community, lifting up the awareness. What is restorative justice? How do we get to it? I mean, and really letting our young people know this is a better way, because they have been taught that talking about it doesn't work. You know, parents have taught us somebody hit you, hit them back. You better not come home, talk about somebody that beat you up. So there was all of our young people know. So it's like there's more to that. It's understanding, especially when it's your friend, y'all having a disagreement, you know, you're going to go back to being friends sometime or later. So why not now learn to just listen, to agree to disagree, to be able to learn how to resolve these issues peacefully has been work I've been actively a part of, and has bringing me peace and wholeness in doing so.
God bless you. God bless you. I'm 76, and every day I realize I don't have to react to things. I can release. It's all going to be good, but it's very hard. It's very hard. It's a lifetime's work.
I mean, that elder helps.
It helps. Autumn, I want to turn to you. In the earlier panel that Michaela moderated, Kalia told us he sees a new cooperative spirit, a new spirit of care emerging among the people he works with at Swarthmore College and the world at large. It's a welcome contrast to the individualistic hustle that, again, racial capitalism wants us all to be junior capitalists and get our own, so to speak. How do you see that? Do you see this emerging culture of care as well from where you're at? And why do you think it's happening?
I really do, especially within the birthwork community of Northern New Mexico, working with Tewa Women United and Three Sisters Collective. As Saya Kathy says, we're multi-generational, multicultural, multi-ethnic groups started by Indigenous women and femmes. So particularly, I think I thought a lot about working through the generational trauma of colonization by really helping our we call the community Janiceros, and they're like a community of people who are Spanish and Mexican and Pueblo indigenous, as well as other tribes that kind of got lumped into one group and then left without any tribal rights. We're helping their community, as well as what we call the Nuevo Mexicana community of people who used to perceive themselves as Hispanic, to really work with themselves to create, to recreate rather, like a land-based lifestyle. And I think that not only is it a part of the inevitable climate collapse that we're all seeing to, you know, be able to sustain off the land and grow our own food, but also because of the nuclearization that is so heavy in our part of the country, especially with the Los Alamos National Laboratories. And through the people that come in from, not from the labs, but around the culture of the labs, we have a lot of white people participating in what we call intersectional Fridays at our farm. So that's a place where we have the moderator and we have ourselves, and we really answer questions about how to work through whiteness. And there's an ice cream truck passing by.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I do see it, and I see people stepping up to want to be a part of this beloved community that we're creating and that we have been a part of for generations.
Right, we could reach out to the Mr. Softy truck and teach
Exactly.
peace everywhere we go. Others on this question of an emerging culture of care and collaboration. Can't happen fast enough, can it?
I don't see it yet in my close vicinity and the work that I do in our staff. I still see the rage, I still see the hurt, I still see the pain and the violence, the wanting to be seen, wanting to be heard, wanting more. I mean, not knowing their self-worth, always wanting to imitate someone else, not knowing who they are, not knowing their history. And one of the groups I work with, and what we say is you defy the lie, embrace the truth, and Black people will flourish. So again, it's about teaching our young people their worth and their history. I have another t-shirt that says, history matters. Tell the children the truth. I think then we will be able to engage with them, understanding and learning their truth, learning their wealth, building up their talents and their skills to help to connect with one another, then be able to work more collectively, collaboratively in addressing the issues that are in our communities. But until we get a strong sense of self and what hurts us and how to be able to identify that and heal that and embrace everything that's within us, then we can serve together strongly.
The hard work.
Yes.
Fredo?
Yeah, I'm having a hard time communicating in English because there's a word for this that the Mexica people who have been asking this question for themselves, especially Chicanos who are born here of indigenous descent, called it Nepantla, the state of in between. Because we don't only have a culture of violence, we have a consciousness of violence, the spirit of violence. At the same time, because of who we are as people of culture, people of love, we have that spirit of love, that consciousness of love. So then there's that in between, right? Where I'm riding in an Uber in this super violent corporation, having a communal conversation with one of my siblings, because she got that idea of sharing a WhatsApp message from a village in Mexico. And it goes to the occupation that we're currently under. And I think we really, really have to start seeing ourselves as a Palestine for 200-300 years, right? Palestine it's in the early stages of what we've been going through for hundreds of years, where it's been normalized. Just a year or 2 years ago, the police detonated a bomb in a South Central residential Black indigenous neighborhood. And when I think about the cooperative communal living, I don't think it's a new thing, because our traditions are oral, right? This is how we learn. This is how we exist. And I'm from a town called Yohanlan de la Independencia, Guerrero. Guerrero was an Afro-Indigenous person who liberated Mexico, right? And when I came to this country, I didn't buy that the history of Africans started with slavery. I thought it happened and it was important and it's still big effects. But where I come from, African people have been exchanging with us for thousands of years, right? So when I came here and there was this division, I immediately saw the now I understand there's a conscience of violence, right? Even when you cross that border, you can't bring seeds across that border. Just recently, one of my friends sued the federal government because they didn't let them bring traditional regalia into the country, right? An occupation. So when I think about where I see this, it's existing. It's happening now. It's just being overstepped on by the occupation. So I call it the settler gaze, where this is what we're doing. We're communicating. This is, how we've been doing it for thousands of years, except we keep focusing. And it's hard to not focus on the settler gaze, right? It's hard when I broke my iPhone to not get a new one. To this day, I'm still struggling with not getting a new iPhone because I want the clearest pictures, right? So we have to get rid of that consciousness of violence. That's our consciousness telling us, go get a new iPhone, right? So what I've been doing more is, brother, I forgot his name, but he was on the panel on the last video telling us, listen to the birds. Those are the beings, the species that are the most cooperative and have been telling us, hey, bro, talk to us. We got you. We will help you grow your plants. When I pray and I swear to the sun, when we pray, and if you pray, you'll see birds coming out and start circling around. Matter of fact, I know we do this. It happens because I've seen that experience that I told my friends, like, do it. The birds, they sing. They're part of us. So I feel that it has to come full circle where we have to start not only seeing ourselves as humans, but as an extension of Earth. Right? So in order for us to get away from that nepantla, that in between, we just have to embrace the land. Because settler colonialism will come and go. Land will not. Right? So as people of culture, people of the land, I think it is our task and our duty to preserve it. And just keep on praying. And I always, I grew up in the Christian church, but I come from the sun. Right? Whatever you believe, biology, or whether you believe the Christian tradition or the Islamic tradition, which a lot of them are similar, or the Jewish tradition, it all talks about how we're made of dust. If we talk about natural selection, we're made of bacteria. Whatever you believe, we're all connected. So I just feel like we have to get back to who we are.
Spoken as a child of the sun and a child of God. Thank you. We're going to close this out with a word from Sister Mati on faith. When I was coming up, I was taught a little bit of faith can move mountains. We all have, and we've been speaking to it, we all have faith in the human future and the future of the earth, and yet we get discouraged. Waves of frustration come over us. So, Mati, if you could say a little bit about the why of the work that you do and what keeps you going.
We began this time, sometime this afternoon, with the song, That's Something Inside So Strong, that was leading their time out for those of us that was here early. And it's that call, that personal call that I know that I have on me to bring peace. I mean, I was the oldest and of siblings, so I was always responsible to always have to look out for them. So I always fought for them as well. That was all part of the looking out. But just learning how to care for the other is what that faith walk had taught me. And I was just smiling as Gandhi was talking about geese, then as you were sharing, Fredo. The morning, my mother died that night, and that morning I got up. I'm a walker, girltrek.org, the largest health organization for Black women. But I get up and do my prayer walks, and that particular morning I was down by the riverfront, just wailing, and here came all the geese. I was like, oh, you're crying too. I was like, they're wailing with me, but it's supporting me and nurturing. So really learning how to nurture one another. Even those that are in the positions in the justice system and in the school systems, and even within our churches, y'all, that want to hold on to a white way of doing things.
Hey.
Learning to lead and follow, lead from and follow from the heart. What has been planted inside has been my saving grace again.
we all can feel your big beating heart, and yours, and yours, and yours, and yours, and yours. Could we have a little bit of love for our wonderful presenter? Or even a whole lot of love. Now, we are about to hear about something profoundly important that's happening right here in Philadelphia, the Restorative Cities Initiative. You're going to love what you hear, the seeds of reparation and reconciliation and good old common sense being planted right here in Philadelphia. So let's enjoy this next segment.
As the National Council of Elders, we pledge to be faithful to our history of movement building and activism. One of my elders was Dr. Vincent Harding, and he used to quote another elder who said, "America will be," and that we have the power to do that. And we're living in a time of we the people and experiencing that power. So it's with great joy and excitement that I get a chance to have conversation with Jody Dodd and to talk about restorative justice and the restorative justice movement in Philadelphia. And what's so cool about it is that each of us, we're doing restorative justice facilitation and organizing in our own locations. So there isn't one way of doing this, but I'm really thrilled that here in the Cradle of Liberty in Pennsylvania, and in Philadelphia in particular, that we're able to do it literally from porch to City Hall. And would like to talk about just this collaborative nature of what we're doing.
As much as Donna couldn't have imagined that she would ever be working with the DA's office, I never could have imagined I would be working in a DA's office if you'd asked me that question more than 6 years ago, because I'd spent most of my life working with peace and nonviolence organizations that had devoted much of my life to really deeply looking at what promotes peace and justice in the world, in our communities, with ourselves. And when Larry Cratchit became the DA, he was saying, well, let's do restorative justice, and asked me if I would be willing to help create that program. And so for the last 6 years, that work has involved talking to a lot of people in the community and finding out who they are and what they're doing and how they're doing it, and talking with people, not just in Philadelphia, but really around the state and around the country about what they're doing with restorative justice. And in the course of all of those conversations and curiosity on my part about what people were doing and how they were doing it, I had the deep luxury of meeting Reverend Donna Jones and learning about restorative cities and the vision, and realize that's the vision that I share. I hold that vision as well, and see that would be a way that we could collaborate, and as we sometimes jokingly say, co-conspire with that vision of ending mass incarceration, with that ending of the vision of how do we reimagine a world where prison and police aren't necessary, or at the very least, they're not as necessary as they are being made to be now. How do we reimagine criminal justice to be something that is about promoting healing and justice through healing, and an opportunity for harms to be repaired, both for people that have been directly harmed, but also people who cause harm, and the community that's always impacted by that harm. So that is the work of restorative justice, that in its relationship with the DA's office, and I'm really honored to be a part of that.
Restorative justice is a process of conflict resolution where people come together in circle with community members, and they have a conversation about what's happened. We hear everybody's side, not just the two people who are involved, but their support systems, their families, people who are not typically included in the conversations when some kind of harm has happened, right? So this is something that started with, when we say indigenous, these are like Native Africans, these are Native Americans, these are First Peoples. And so they had practices where, but way before prisons, they knew how to resolve their conflicts. I mean, there's a lot of questions that people have about restorative justice. They think, you know, having a conversation is not effective in actually being able to prevent things from happening, right? Restorative justice has such a lower rate of recidivism than incarceration does, and also costs a lot less for people to go through the program than typical incarcerations. What restorative justice is able to do and address people's families, people's communities, making sure that they know how to be reincorporated in society. So when people are incarcerated, it's a very like isolating situation where it gives them the mindset of like me against the world, right? And so when they come out, they don't feel like they're a part of the world. They still have the mindset of being isolated. And so that's why when people are returning citizens, they have such a hard time and end up right back into the system. So restorative justice means you can stay at home. You are part of the system, and we are all responsible for keeping you accountable, making sure that you're on the right track. And then you can also contribute back to what we're building here.
So my story, basically, I was a young man, 16, you know, locked up in charge as an adult, sent on state rule, set up to fail, did not be, you know, anything in life. So Healing Futures got started because it was just this idea on how we can change the narrative of how things go in our city, as far as with young people going through the court system and things of that nature. You have all these folks saying all these bunch of things about you, but you don't have no voice. You feel like you're a young person in there, you have no voice to speak up for yourself, to tell your side of the story, or just to say how you feel. And also, like, every day you don't get to meet the person who did something to you, and plus it's hard, it's challenging, and it's taking a step to hold young people accountable and make up for the things that they did wrong, to make things more right.
Just for context, a restorative justice diversion program happens after a young person has unfortunately maybe gone through arrest or been contacted by the system, and then the referral is made to us to be able to keep the young people in a community process that does not involve the system again until we tell them, hey, we did our job, we're done here.
It's rather than just telling everybody what we were gonna what we do in Circle, what we do in restorative justice, we thought we would construct a mini 2-person circle for people to see and for everybody to know. So, you know, just going through some of the elements of things that are here.
These are talking pieces. They're just symbolic of when you have it, the other person is in a state of active listening to you, and you can say, you hold it to speak, or you can hold it to make silence.
Yes, and so another element is kind of the centerpiece or our base. And so all of this is kind of considered a centerpiece, but, you know, we always like to construct something in the center of the circle that brings people together based on shared values. It can also be based on people we love, people we've lost, you know, important things in our lives, important objects that mean something to us or represent us, that we bring here in that collaborative aspect, right? That everybody is a part of the decision-making and the values of the circle, right? So that we, you know, pass the talking piece to each other. We ask really intentional questions, and not only ask them, but then we have to answer them ourselves as well, right? As people in the circle, we're all invited to listen and to share, and get an opportunity to be present. You know, we always kind of invite the person harmed to share first in the circle. So we ask them if you know, after we ground, we do some initial checking questions, and then we pass it over to the person harmed to talk about how this experience has impacted them. We give them the floor, and we really make sure that we prep with the young person to practice those things like active listening. So they also are able to, you know, identify for themselves when shame might be coming up or when anger might be coming up, so that they can make sure that they're fully able to be present when the other person is talking. After that person shares, the person harmed, we then turn it over to the parent of the responsible young person to talk about their experience going through this process and anything they would like to share to the young person or to the person harmed. And then we turn it over to the young person, the responsible youth, to either share their letter, to give an impact statement. One of the really powerful circles that we did recently was with 2 young people who got into a fight at school that ended up being pretty pretty severe for one of those young people. And they both ended up being in our program doing one-on-one work. The same sessions every week, they would do them on their own. And both worked really, really hard as two young Black men to come together and to talk about how this affected us. What were the things we were bringing to this fight? And how can we make a plan to do things better? And they were actually the first two young people ever in Healing Futures who were on either side of like a person harmed and a responsible young person to actually do a plan together. So then they ended up helping a food distribution organization in Germantown for what was supposed to be a month, and they're starting in September, and they are still helping out together to this day. And so I think those, you know, those stories, those situations where these two young people have now found a passion for service and for helping people, that found an interest in like, you know, business and like, you know, nonprofit work, and have found, you know, new ways that they want to grow while also reconnecting with themselves and each other, I think have been some of the most beautiful outcomes of the circles that we've done. And to see those two young people in a circle make that plan together with adults in the room, that we just got to be silent while these two young people made a plan about how to make things right, I think are the things in circle that we would never be able to see in a courtroom, you know.
But you get to see a side, a real vulnerability side of a young man owning up for what he did, apologizing for that, which is a hard thing to do for a 15, 14, 16-year-old. They're not used to just, I feel like that's way more harder coming up to write a perfect apology letter for a person. It feels good to see a different perspective on things as far as how we're so accustomed to the courts and the system. But just to see that things play out differently when two people come together with community and love and folks that care, things can play out totally different.
Definitely want to give it up for the work that's being done, right? Not the work that we're thinking about, but the work that's being done. And so as we prepare to close the day, I just want to say thank you. I want to also remind everyone to go to our website. I saw it in the chat, King and Breaking Silence website, KINGANDBREAKINGSILENCE.org. Yes, I deserve a round of applause. See, everything about the Philadelphia Public School was not bad. But no, in all seriousness, you can visit our site to find out more about these topics. Again, see the extended version of these different conversations. And we encourage you to continue the conversations. So share the conversations with others. Let it be a way to prompt these conversations in your beloved communities, right? So whether it is your school, your job, your block, but we share these conversations and let people know. I saw in the chat, people were saying like it's tremendous, authentic conversation. We can continue tremendous, authentic conversations amongst our own beloved communities. And so we now end our webinar in a place of healing and hope. Our healing team for this gathering will close us out in a spirit of thanksgiving and unity. I invite you to open up your hearts to receive them and the gift that they offer us at this time.
So our closing piece is the calling and response. I'm going to begin, and Autumn, nice and loud, is going to follow, and you're going to follow what Autumn says, okay? All right? Yeah. So we're going to listen up. Y'all going to listen up to Autumn. Autumn is going to, yeah. So today is ours.
Let's live it.
Let's live it.
And love is strong.
Let's give it.
Let's give it.
A song can help.
Let's sing it.
Let's sing it.
And peace is dear.
Let's bring it.
Let's bring it.
The past is gone.
Don't ruin it.
Don't ruin it.
Our work is here.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Our world is wrong.
Let's write it.
Let's write it.
The battle is hard.
Let's fight it.
Let's fight it.
The road is rough.
Let's clear it.
Let's clear it.
The future is vast.
Don't fear it.
Don't fear it.
Is faith asleep?
Let's wake it.
Let's wake it.
Today is ours.
Let's take it.
Let's take it.
Today is ours.
Let's take it.
Today is ours.
Let's take it.
Okay.
Yeah.
The higher you build your barriers, the taller I become. The farther you take my rights away, the faster I will run. You can deny me, you can decide to turn your face away. No matter, 'cause there's something inside so strong. I know that I can make it, though you're doing me wrong, so wrong. You thought that my pride was gone. Oh no, something inside so strong.